Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Todd Barton.
Hey, good morning.
What's up, Todd?
Okay.
It can be that
Tragedy,
quick.
right? An accident.
Yeah.
Not malicious, not planned, but somebody's life was taken away. So this kid, he's talking, and the way he carried himself was very, he did what he had to do in prison to survive, but he wasn't like that hardcore. He wasn't trying to make a name for himself. He was just doing what he had to do. So it's kind of rare to see that, the way he carried himself. So obviously that kind of catches your attention. And so when I'm talking to him about it, he said, yeah, man, it's fucked up. And he goes, I waited until I was sentenced to reach out to the family because I didn't want them to think that I was saying my apologies or my sorries just to try to get a lesser sentence, whether they were going to let me out with time served or whether I was going to go to death row, which wasn't. But I'm just the point was, whatever extreme it was, he was going to write this family a letter apologizing. Okay. Got some credit. Your credit score is definitely going up with me when you're talking about something like that. He said the mess. So we ended up getting 17 to life for that. I mean, 17 years old, election year with the judge. He said the only thing that was messed up, Bartos, he goes, the very next year, that same judge that sentenced me, his son basically did the exact same thing, DUI with a vehicular homicide. That guy spent 6 months in county jail and it was time served.
Wow.
Life's not fair, man. Fortunately, this kid has gotten out. This was one that kid, I mean, when I met him, he was 25. He's damn near, my age now. That's how long ago it was. But he's gotten out. He's reached out to me, doing great in life. Again, This is a guy that, again, we could argue. I could sit there and say, to me, compared to a lot of the guys that I saw in there, did he belong in prison? No. To that family who he took somebody's brother, somebody's son, they might have a totally different opinion than me. And I can respect that and I can understand that. That wasn't my brother. That wasn't my son that died. So I can have a different viewpoint on it. I'll I can get that.
You know how inmates, some of them will be like, take that fucking badge off and we'll see how tough you are. Have you ever seen the cop take the badge off?
Allegedly. Yeah. Back in dining
what
halls.
happens then? What happens then when you take the badge off? What happens then?
A lot of times they'll piss all over themselves. They're calling your bluff or you're calling their bluff, whatever, however you want to put it. Sometimes you fight. And back when I started, we were brawling. I mean, us guards would brawl. We would fight
with each other?
With each other, man. You had a problem. We'd go out in the concrete yard. You'd have parking lot therapy. We were men. It was a different world. But again, men being men, you'd go out and fight that dude. You could agree to disagree at that point. There wasn't a lot of shit talk because shit talking just creates a lot more tension than a lot of time. And I'm not saying violence is the answer, but man, sometimes it just solves it and then it's done. Yeah. You got a problem with me. I got a problem with you. We go out there and we fight. At the end of the day, man, cool. Shake each other's hands. It's a wrap. Kind of same. It was the same way with the convicts. You know what I mean? Hey, man, it's all good.
But then sometimes they would write outlandish stories on trying to up.
Not in those situations. Not in those. Yeah. If a guy was man enough to call you out like that, because I've had those dudes where it's like you put the cuff, like a guy's talking a bunch of shit behind the door, like let's say an ad seg, you put that cuff on one click. Very easy to slip that cuff. You tell him, hey, man, here, now's your chance. Do what you're going to do. You're talking big shit behind that door. Now let's see what you got. Oh, man, it's cool. I was just stressing out, man. I ain't got no problems.
Do you ever fight with somebody and be like, damn, they're giving me a run for my money?
Fuck yeah. Man, I've had guys rattle my belt pretty fucking good. And again, you're like, man, fuck, that guy got hit. I had one dude, this black dude that we fought like that. And it was funny because, man, he got my jaw good, man. He fucking racked me a good one in the mouth. And I ended up cracking a good one in his ribs. And the next day when I saw him, I'm like, man, you good? He goes, I'm good, man. I go, man, you fucking nailed my jaw pretty good. He goes, I ain't never had no white boy crack my ribs like you did either. And now we laugh about it. And then later on, that guy, ironically, that was at Folsom. That guy transferred up to High Desert later on. I gave that dude a job in the dining hall when he didn't even have a job. I had an issue with another guy that was being a punk. That guy handled that guy.
See how it works?
That's how it works. And that's how it should work. Well,
It's
but man,
crazy.
yeah,
Wow.
that guy fucked my mouth up pretty good,
What about these gay boy gangsters?
man.
Tell me about them.
Man, that okay. Again, remember when I was saying like you had guys that were solid motherfuckers, but for one reason or they did a bad hit, they got caught up in stuff, they wanted out of the gang, they'd go SNY. They were still men, they were still hardcore. Anybody can be an SNY now. And back then, those guys, they weren't proud of being SNY. It was almost embarrassing to them. Going out on the streets, if they got to a chance of parole, now they had to face their people out there. Man, you want PC, you're gonna go back. These guys now, they're making PC gangs, tattoos, gay boy gangsters, brothers, wives. I mean, dude, unbelievable type shit. Gay, I mean, how the fuck are you gay boy gangster and proud of it? And then go out on the street and still run that. Because there was guys that were in prison that were gay for the stay. You know
Straight
what?
at the gate. Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? Okay. But now you're going to be proud of it. And I would ask these dudes sometimes that were SNY in the beginnings of it, man, what's going to happen to you when you go out on the streets? Dude, nobody's fucks with me. What do you mean nobody fucks with you? So living here, I'm up in Butte County. I had a buddy that was active Butte County gangster. And I asked him, I go, how are you guys dealing with these PCs when they come out? And he says, man, Bartos, he goes, those guys are more active than we are. And it's because of numbers. Like I said, there's so many of them. They're like, man, fuck you. You're Butte County gangster. You'll take on the GBGs. We got more than you. Who wants to get beat up by a gay guy?
I've seen it happen.
Oh, dude. I had, well, okay, here's the other part too, like with SNYs. These guys, a lot of them weren't always lames. Like I said, some of these guys were hardcore. We had this dude that was Northern Structure, okay, flamboyant as fuck, dressed like the girl, did the lisp, I mean, makeup, wore his little t-shirt like a crop top, all that kind of shit. But back in the day, this motherfucker was a soldier. This motherfucker was gutting people for the NF. So on B Yard at High Desert at that time, there were some blacks that were running a pimp operation back in education. Guys would take their break to go to the bathroom, and there was somebody there that was hooking them up. They were pimping out dudes for fucking blowjobs and sexual acts and all that kind of shit. Northerner, somehow there was some kind of power struggle with that. All of a sudden, this fucking sissy Northerner took off on this black and damn near gutted him, left him on the ground in a bloody fucking mess. And I would tell, because these guards they didn't know a lot about these guys. And they kind of like, again, my benefit coming from SAC, I got trained pretty well, compared to what they had at High Desert. And I would tell these guys, man, not all these guys are punks, man. You see this guy acting like a sissy. Yeah, it's kind of funny right now, and you think, you don't know what that individual's background was. You can't always judge that book by its cover. One of my first experiences with that was escorting this big 240-pound black dude to from the hole to a medical point. Said he was pregnant. Said he had to get a pregnancy test. Okay, and flamboyant as all get out, And my partner wasn't having, because AdSeg 2-on-1 escort. And my partner wasn't having it. He goes, man, shut the fuck up. You ain't pregnant. You're taking loads up the ass, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, the man came out of Kenesha. And it went from this sweet little thing to, motherfucker, why don't you take these cuffs off and let's see fucking who the man is and who's taking it in the ass, And I'm just like, fuck. I go, hey, settle down, girl. We're all good. Ah, Bartos, you're so cute. You're so sweet. Man, I was like, thank God, man. I don't want to get my ass kicked by a 240-pound fucking homosexual. Everybody's watching.
Yeah. That's crazy. What about booty bandits? Because there's a lot of talk about booty bandits, people taking it from other men. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah. And those guys, okay, so back in the day, too, again, all these things that happen change what ends up happening. So now you have to have what's called marriage chronos to live in a cell with somebody. You can't just as a guard, I can't put you in a cell with just anyone. You guys got to be compatible. You got to sign paperwork. You got to do that. Well, back in the day, there wasn't that. So you had guys that were sexual predator, and guards would use them, and they would use us for their thing. Like, hey, man, you got a guy who's a piece of shit, who's acting up, put him in a cell with me, and I'll take care of it.
Man,
there was one guy that, man, I remember this guy made it through all the counts because, for counts, they're supposed to stand up and you're living, breathing flesh and all that kind of stuff to make it through. 4 o'clock count, they mandatory standing count, and Sully's passed out, and this guy stands up and face is black and blue. I mean, you couldn't even recognize him. I mean, so swolled up and stuff like that. His Sully been working him for fucking 2 days, and they, I don't know why they would have pumped his stomach, but word had that they had to pump his stomach. Who knows? I mean, why? But that's how, how the stories go. But man, that guy couldn't even walk. He had to be in a wheelchair because he was that tore up.
And they're trapped in the cell,
right,
with these people.
But here, I've got a great story on that where it can go the flip side of that too. So we had a kid come into us at High Desert from the YA. The reason they sent him to us, he was 17 years old, so he had to be in ad seg, celled by himself because he was still a minor. They sent him from YA because he was forcing little kids to go down on him, suck his dick for cigarettes. They'd finally had it with him. They didn't know what else to do with him, so they sent him to prison. Now he's in prison. He wants to be a hardcore white boy, and he's idolizing him. And back then, man, NLR was a big thing at High Desert, and we had an NLR shot caller who was gay for the stay, hardcore sexual predator. And this kid idolized him. And we kept telling him, hey, man, because he goes, man, when I turn 18, I want you guys to move me in with him. We're like, dude, you know what he's about, right? You know what he's going to do. Oh, man, you guys are full of shit. Fuck you. Don't ever disrespect him like that. Blah, blah, blah. He ain't that guy, stuff like that. Okay. Happy 18th birthday. Move him into the cell with that dude. Now, the guy we moved him in with, again, these guys love to talk. You have rapport with them. So he moves into the cell. Next day, he goes to the yard, concrete yard. And they worked his ass because whites, so there's mandatory workout on the concrete yard. They make him do remedial work and then they whack him. They fucking beat the dog shit out of this kid. He was no good. Okay. Very next day after being in that cell, we're stripping out the cell. He's got handprints on his shoulders, handprints on his hips, where this guy'd been being worked all night. So we talked to the cellie. Hey, man, what happened last night? He goes, oh, man, that fucking punk kid. He goes, yeah, I came in and I said, hey, what's your crime? Why'd they send you to prison? He told me they was making kids suck his dick for cigarettes and YA. He said, all right, man, well, check this out. We're not okay with it, but we're going to make you put in some work and kind of clean it up and it'll be all right. He goes, what'd the guards tell you about me? He goes, oh, man, they said that you're this and you're that. And he goes, well, I am. Punches him, knocks him out. And this is his story. He goes, man, I knocked him down on the ground. I started taking that ass. He goes, at one point, he goes, okay, enough. He goes, I punched him in the back of the head and I said, I'll let you know when I'm done. So that kid's in that holding cell after all that happened. And that guy is the guy who called the hit on the yard. Didn't even go to the yard because he was still spent from fucking working that ass all night. Okay. Had him whacked on the yard. This kid's in a holding cage. And he goes, am I going to move back in with them? I'm like, no. He goes, no, it's all good.
What?
He got turned out. That kid's probably out there cross-dressing somewhere or doing something. He got turned out.
Have you seen that a lot where people go in there all masculine and then all of a sudden there's a flip?
Oh, yeah. A lot of people have identity issues. You throw drugs into it. They'll do anything for drugs. Again, these people looking for acceptance. Now all of a sudden they're liked. Now they're popular. I've got friends.
It's the wrong type of popular, man.
It's not my game. It's not the popularity I want, but yeah, man, that's the reality.
So have you had any famous people come through the prison when you were there?
Yeah. Menendez had the Menendez brother. One of my partners was.
I interviewed Lyle.
Okay. So this was Eric. He starts at Folsom. He's in our reception hole type thing. I had a partner that was like, man, he was the gunner on the yard. He wanted to take, back then all we had was a Polaroid camera. He goes, man, how much do you think the National Enquirer would give me for a picture of this motherfucker on the concrete yard? I'm like, good luck to you, man. I just started my career. I'm going to go ahead and walk over here while you do this. He never did it, but yeah, that was the temptation.
Wow. So you had Eric there.
Eric, and that guy, man, his attorney was bringing in all sorts of shit for him. Video game systems, money, God knows what. And that guy thought he was the shit. He became part, they had the men's council, the MAC. Oh, man, he was MAC chairman real quick. All of a sudden, he was politicking, and he thought he was that same big guy out on the streets, that he was in prison. Money does that. Money does flow. These guys will use you and abuse you. We had another guy from the Millionaires Boys Club, the guy that they killed his father. Remember that one?
Yeah.
And he got hit. This guy with Staxx was really freaking good. This guy would get on the phone. Guards would let him get on the phone all the time, and he was getting stock deals and then telling guards which stocks to go into and which to invest and which not to. So he was getting taken care of for that. That guy ended up winning on appeal because my belief is in that one, and I may be not 100% on this, and we're talking almost 30 years ago now too, but that they said they never found the body. How do you have a murder if you don't have a body? He won it on appeal. So when he won his appeal, they fucking deported him straight out of the country right afterwards.
Was there a lot of celebrities coming through there?
Not really. I mean, we had a few. You know, I dealt with the guy Goodwin. He was the guy that killed Mickey Thompson. Remember Mickey Thompson, the tires and all that kind of stuff? Baja tires, big tires, and started the indoor, like the off-road truck racing that brought it indoors, like motocross and stuff like that. He was the guy that killed that guy. There's been a few. So here's one for you. Here's
yeah.
You were talking about guards doing bad things, right? So we had a guy, black dude, comes into our prison. He was a sergeant at a woman's prison. So automatically, what do you think his crime was going to be, right? Did something with a female inmate, right? Not this motherfucker. This guy tried to rape 2 female staff members, sexually assault them. This guy was an OP sergeant, which means outside patrol. So they're armed in a vehicle. The female officer was an OP officer, armed in an outside vehicle, gets her in his car and forces her to fucking orally copulate him. How does that happen? You're a cop and you're armed. So again, you start to go, all right, was this a relationship that went bad and this chick was able to flip this around and do that? Or was it legit? But this guy was doing time for that.
Have you seen a lot of cops come in there? And what's their stay like once cops get arrested and go into the prison?
They're not liked by anybody. They're not liked by other cops, and they're okay. So we've heard of stories where I never dealt with them, but like I know you've heard about the stories about Corcoran and the setups, and there's guys that did jail time over that. Pelican Bay had some guards that ended up excessive use of force or unnecessary force, and they end up doing crime for it. They go to prison for it.